his books outsold the books of Mark Twain one year. So that tells you how big he was at one point.
Tucson historian David Layton is describing the impact best-selling author Harold Bell Wright had on American literature in the first half of the 1900s. The impact included several books centered around Tucson, where he lived for many years. Now, a century later, you might have never heard of Harold Bell Wright. That is, unless you're street smart like Layton and recognize a neighborhood on the east side named for Wright.
By naming the estate after him, the subdivision, naming the streets after characters in the book, it was a great idea.
That's right. Wright's legacy lives on in the Harold Bell Wright Estates, located on the southeast corner of Speedway and Wilmot. But to understand his journey to Tucson, you have to go back to the start. A preacher living in Kansas, Harold Bell Wright wrote his first melodramatic story entitled The Printer of Udell's. It was published in 1903.
That actually did inspire President Ronald Reagan to become Christian.
And it inspired Printer Udell Street in the Harold Bell Wright Estates. You'll also find Shepherd Hills Drive, named after Wright's second novel, The Shepherd of the Hills. Corinth Avenue comes from a fictitious town in Wright's third book, The Calling of Dan Matthews. And in 1911, his novel The Winning of Barbara Worth inspired Barbara Worth Drive. In 1915, Wright was diagnosed with tuberculosis.
Health reasons brought so many people to Tucson, and that's what brought him here. And that's where he kind of set up his life as he kind of healed and got better.
Wright credited St. Mary's Hospital and the Tucson weather with his improved health. His 1919 novel, The Recreation of Bryant Kent, is remembered in the Harold Bell Wright Estates as Bryant Kent Street. By 1922, Wright had purchased land far east of Tucson near what is now Speedway and Wilmot and built a Pueblo-style home. That's about the time he learned of a legend centered around the Santa Catalina Mountains.
The Iron Door Mine, gold in the mountains, Buffalo Bill Cody.
Robert Zucker is an author and historian with a first-hand knowledge of the Iron Door Mine legend.
Before 1880, it was a well-known story in this area.
It was a story of a lost gold and silver mine somewhere in the Santa Catalina Mountains, the untold riches protected by an iron door. The story making its way to the pages of Harold Bell Wright's 1923 novel, The Mine with the Iron Door,
which later was made into a film, which is how it became more popular. Many of his books were actually turned into films, and that's what actually helped his legend grow.
The Mine with the Iron Door was filmed in and around Tucson, just like the movie version of his 1924 book, A Son of His Father. By 1934, Tucson's rapid growth had reached Wright's estate. He moved to California and lived until his death in 1944. Mary Gardner owned Wright's home and property, and in 1950 developed the Harold Bell Wright Estates, with streets named for characters and places in his books.
If she hadn't done this, we wouldn't have the Harold Bell Wright Estate subdivision, we wouldn't have these street names. He'd be largely forgotten.
But instead, in Tucson, Harold Bell Wright remains absolutely Arizona.